Get the news on our shows and other happenings by following us on Twitter. Find us at VoiceAmericaTRN or twitter.com/VoiceAmericaTRN. The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Have you ever thought about why people act the way they do? Why are some people more difficult to deal with, while others are always pleasant? Let's find out together. Welcome to Human Behavior. What a trip. Your host is Dr. Jonathan Brower. Our program combines expert guests with people just like you who have questions or comments. We'll have fun exploring human behavior. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jonathan Brower.
Hello, everybody. This is Jonathan Brower. My show is called Human Behavior, What a Trip. And today, literally and figuratively, we're going to have a good trip with Steve Schlah. And I'll tell you the trip that I just was referring to. On several occasions, Steve has taken me to one of the two local airports, either LAX, Los Angeles International Airport, or Burbank Airport, and then back to my home later. And he does this kind of work just a couple of days a week, and he does it mainly because he has fun visiting with people. So we're in trip for a good time. Hi, Steve. Welcome to the show.
How you doing, Doctor?
Good. Yeah, you can just call me Jonathan.
That's my thing is taking people on trips.
Yeah.
Short ones.
Yeah. And you have a fun time doing it.
I really do. It's a lot of fun. I meet some very interesting people, and it's just been a blast. It's certainly not for the money. It's for the fun.
Yes. And when you say you're having fun, you also can have fun even with a crabby person who you're driving somewhere.
Yeah, that's kind of the challenge of it. As far as a lot of these people are very very much in a state of flux as far as getting on or off the airplanes and what have you, and pretty wound up. And so part of the thing is to try and unruffle some feathers.
Yes. So for anybody who lives in Southern California, if you need a shuttle to the airport, you can call Steve.
Yeah, not at home, hopefully.
Okay. So let's start from the very beginning. And this doesn't have to be a big segment, but what was your growing up like? Where'd you grow up, and what kind of things did you like to do?
Well, I as I told you previously, I was an adopted child, and I was adopted in Los Angeles and grew up in various places. But as far as
before you go on, were you adopted at birth, or several days later, or a few weeks?
From what I understand, about 3 months old, and basically grew up in Inglewood and Santa Barbara, and now I live in up in Ventura.
And
California. I'm a Southern California boy.
Yeah, me too. So, when you were growing up, did you have both a mom and a dad?
Yeah, as far as my adoptive parents, had one of each, and had a good childhood as far as that goes. And my father was a wholesale milkman, and my mother actually worked in the aircraft industry during the war, and then periodically when I was growing up.
So when your dad was doing wholesale milk stuff, was he was delivering the milk or what?
Oh yeah, he delivered to stores and what have you, and then periodically I got to ride along with him when I was young, and it wasn't until the insurance situation with the company kicked in that they wouldn't allow the kids to ride along anymore. But it was quite a lot of fun, and enjoyed that. Yeah, quite a bit.
What year were you born?
I was born in 1946. I'm 67 years old. I can't believe it, but time does march on.
I'm 68 years old. So, do you remember as a kid having milk delivered to each household?
We didn't, because my dad brought it home.
Oh, I see. We had it.
And we got everything under the sun, and I became a devout believer in Tillamook cheese of all things. But no, he brought home just about everything you could imagine as far as that goes.
And I believe you told me when you were transporting me various times, you were a football player in high school?
No, I was a swimmer, actually.
Oh, a swimmer.
Yeah, I was too tall and too lean as far as for playing football. I tried out, but they said no, and so with my frame, I went into swimming and was fairly good at it, but it at least kept me from drowning. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, you got from one end to the other end. Exactly.
And then as far as surfing and body surfing and what have you, that water was a real love of mine.
Yes.
In fact, my dad taught me how to swim down in South Bay, L.A. and what have you, and so my thing was swimming.
And what high school did you go to?
That was up in Santa Barbara. After we moved from Inglewood to Santa Barbara in 1959, I went to a place called San Marcos High School.
Yeah, I know that.
In Santa Barbara, and the funny thing is that when I lived in L.A., there was a girl that I knew that went to San Marcos High School, but in San Marcos, California, and we exchanged graduation certificates, and they were identical. It was really kind of a weird situation.
I lost you. What was the weird part?
Well, it's just that she went to San Marcos, and so did I, but it was about 200 miles separating the two schools.
I see. So you and she, were you a boyfriend, girlfriend, or what?
No. She was the daughter of good friends of my parents.
I see.
And that's how that worked out. If she's listening in, her name's Ray Lane, and I would love to get in contact with her again.
Okay. So one of the things you told me when we were going to or from the airport a couple of times, you recently refound this woman that you knew in high school?
Yes, yeah, that's kind of the irony of things, that she and I went to high school and junior college together for a couple of years, and I hadn't seen her in 48 years, and we're having our 50th reunion coming up in August, and so there was kind of a chain of emails amongst some of the other quote kids, unquote. And I saw her name, so I asked, I wonder if it would be okay if I emailed her, and that was back in January, and I've since just in January we had about over 1,000 emails, and as of just a couple of months ago, we're boyfriend girlfriend again.
Oh, that's cool. That's a nice love story.
Yeah, it really is.
And she resides where?
She lives up in Santa Barbara. She's lucky enough to have been able to stay up there, and just retired as a school teacher after 39 years herself, whereas I only got 10 years in as far as being a teacher. Yeah, and you live in Ventura, right? Correct. About 30 miles to meet your honey. Yeah, exactly. A couple times a week, but it's worth the drive, definitely. I see. That's good. So one big part of your life, at least for a few years, it was quite intense. You were a soldier in Vietnam. Yeah, like so many of my age group. I ended up. I signed up because after dropping out of San Diego State as a junior, I figured that they're going to draft me anyway, so I better go sign up. And so I volunteered, and due to a previously broken kneecap, asthma, and kidney problems, they said no. But 6 months later, they drafted me anyway. I guess they lowered the standards. So
and when you got drafted, what was your immediate reaction when you found out?
I thought it was behind me, and so I wasn't the most happy camper in the world. I was at the time living in Isla Vista, right next to UCSB, and
yeah, I used to live in Isla Vista.
I was in the party atmosphere, is what it came down to. So that kind of spoiled the parties.
Yeah, and so was it a shock to your nervous system to be in the Army?
Yeah, it was. I went willingly, obviously, because there's only two other avenues of approach, and that is putting in time 5 years in prison or going to Canada, and those didn't sound very good to me. So I just took the luck of the draw, and with 2.5 years of college, I went in and I was able to get a number of good assignments as far as just because of the college background.
Uh-huh.
And so it worked out very well for me. I got 5 years of not the normal 4, but 5 years of VA educational benefits, and it like I say, it worked out very well for me. I went through ROTC and got a history and political science degree from UCSB and what have you, and so it really worked out really well for me.
So when I
have no complaints.
And were you in Vietnam?
Right, I was there all of 1968.
And at any time were you having to worry about not getting killed by bullets or grenades?
Well, that was kind of the weird situation that part of the time I was what's known as a public information specialist.
Yeah.
I would go out in the field to write human interest stories, take a few pictures, stuff like that. When my primary job was working on aircraft as far as sheet metal work goes, and so when we had a lull in the lack of bullet holes in the aircraft, I would go out there and do some writing and some picture taking. But it seemed that when I'd go out there, that's when they would start deciding that to lob in mortars and what have you. So I tried to stay out of that area as much as possible.
Yeah. So the movies we've all seen over the last 40 years about Vietnam, are they fairly reasonable to what it was like actually being there?
Some of them I would have to say very definitely, and some of them I would say not so much. I remember being asked to review a movie called The Boys in Company C by MGM Studios.
Uh-huh.
And the training part of it was very, very accurate. In fact, the Army, I can't think of his last name, but the gentleman that's on TV a lot with his armaments program. Anyway, he was in that, and it was basic training, and along with a couple of other movies showing stuff like that was very, very accurate. And then some of the stuff in Vietnam, to me, Apocalypse Now was very credible in the respect that it showed the eeriness of the thing. It was almost like an unworldly situation.
Yeah.
Because we used to call this back here the world, and over there was something else. It wasn't. It was kind of an ethereal situation. It was not real, but yet we were in the middle of something too real, is what it came down to.
Yes. So I would imagine if I wasn't in Vietnam fighting a war, but if I was, I'm pretty sure I'd be fairly nervous the whole time about getting killed or getting maimed or having my legs lopped off or whatever.
And that's the thing that the guys and the ladies, as far as that goes, a lady just passed away just recently in Afghanistan. So I mean, today it's not just the males; it's the males and the females. And
yes.
It is, it's in the back of your mind, but you do have a job assignment, whatever it may be, and you do that to the best of your ability. I was lucky to have been placed in a situation where I wasn't in the infantry or something to that effect. My heart goes out to every one of those Vietnam vets that had to go through all of that stuff with the temperatures in the 120s and carrying a pack and a flak jacket and what have you, being totally miserable. And I was just lucky, and I that's why I have a thing called survivor guilt, that so many Vietnam vets have needed help since they came back, and then I had 13 friends that didn't come back, so from high school and college. But it kind of gnawed on me for a few years that I need to help my fellow veterans to make it, because I was lucky enough to get through a lot of that stuff. So that was my bent as far as trying to do stuff for my fellow veterans and what have you. And I did that for about 7 or 8 years. Yes.
So, did you experience any post-traumatic stress disorder?
Not. Luckily, I didn't, because I wasn't in like I say, the infantry, where it was just a constant situation.
Yeah.
They did have their boredom periods when something wasn't going on, but the adrenaline was pumping quite a bit. And one of the things that most people don't realize as to why Vietnam vets had post-traumatic stress syndrome was because, like World War II, you had about a month coming back from Europe or Asia, or the South Pacific, to kind of unwind amongst your fellow soon-be veterans situation, and so they were able to talk things through. When you came back from Vietnam, you left one day and you were back home the next, and you might have had a rifle the day before, and you're on the street the following day with no time to decompress, no time to talk to your fellow veterans, except for maybe on the plane, and that wasn't done, at least not on the airplane that I came home on. And so you didn't have that decompression situation that was really important, just because the time factor of coming back so quickly and being on the street.
You were in Vietnam for 5 years, right?
No. I was there. I was home. No. I was there for only a year. I was there all of 1968, but I ran a program for Vietnam vets for 5 years.
I get you. Okay.
Yeah. No. I feel for the guys that extended so that they could get out early, because in my case, I was drafted. I put in 2 years, whereas what they call an RA, regular Army, those guys, they would be in for 3 years. And so the tour of duty over there was for a year, and if you extended for maybe 6 months, then you might be able to get what they called an early out, and be able to not have to do the additional 3, 4, 5 months that would have been on your regular run as far as within the military itself.
Yes. And over the years, have you stayed in touch with some of these guys you were with in Vietnam?
Yeah, one of my best friends lives right here in Ventura, and he's been a roommate of mine a couple of times, and we're still, quite close as far as that goes. Some of the ones that I'd really like to still be able to talk to. In fact, my blood brother in Vietnam, Johnny C. Jones, if you're out there, he and I became blood brothers in Vietnam. Very tight, and I just lost contact with him. He moved back east and to Washington D.C., and I just lost contact with him. But he was I'm white, he was black. We used to talk as far as comparing cultural nuances and stuff like that, and we just became very, very tight.
Yeah,
really a great guy.
We're going to take a commercial break somewhere around 90 seconds to 120 seconds. I'm not sure what. So we're going to stop for a commercial break, and we'll come back in a couple of minutes.
Sounds fine with me.
Okay.
A fresh look at today's health. Voice America Health and Wellness.
Legal Shield. Total access. Everyone deserves legal protection. With Legal Shield, everyone can access it, no matter how traumatic or trivial. Check out players.buildinglastingsuccess.com and jjbrower.com. Call Jonathan at 805-535-5111.
DefeatAnxietyNow.com is geared to help people suffering with anxiety and depression. Intensive, short-term, dynamic psychotherapy helps many people get to the absolute core of their problems and resolve them. Call Dr. Jonathan Brower at 818-707-4557.
Interested in investing in real estate, leveraging other people's money? Call Jonathan Brower, and he can give you some more information. 805-535-5111. That's 805-535-5111.
SportsPsychologySociology.com can help you improve your ability to excel and enjoy your athletic endeavors. Call Dr. Jonathan Brower at 818-707-4557.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
You're listening to Human Behavior, What a Trip, with Dr. Jonathan Brower. If you have a question or comment for the show this week, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. That's toll free, 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to jbrowerphd@yahoo.com. Now, back to Human Behavior, What a Trip.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show, Human Behavior, What a Trip. And right before the commercial break began, Steve, you were talking about Johnny C. Jones, and then you were wondering where he might be. So, Johnny, this is a long shot, but if Johnny C. Jones happens to listen to the show right now.
Yeah, he as far as I know, he was from Washington, D.C., but moved to someplace in Georgia, and that's the extent of my knowledge as to where he is. I found that out through another Vietnam vet that I was stationed with over in Nam, and that's all that he could get for me.
So the probability maybe 1,000 or 1,000,000 to 1 or more.
Yeah, I tried the Washington D.C. phone book, and there were about 30 of them in there, so that was the problem at that time.
I see. So if there's any Johnny C. Jones out there who wants to call 1-866-472-5792, come on over and you can talk with your buddy from Vietnam.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. So at some point, you decided to become a high school teacher. What prompted you to want to do that? My son
is. I was in food service sales and what have you for about 15 years after I got out of the Jobs for Veterans program with the National Alliance of Business, and I couldn't find myself a job. It was in 1981, and it was jobs were a little bit rough, and every place I seemed to go, I was overqualified for sheet metal work and et cetera, So I did that, but my son is a school teacher, and he says, "Dad, you always liked instruction. Why don't you try that out?" And so I started tutoring for some fourth grade kids that were having reading difficulties, as I did when I was a kid. And it was just a natural progression where I subbed and then went back to school and got my California teaching credential through Cal State Northridge. And it was until I got laid off a number of years ago because of budget cuts, that whole thing. It seems that teaching social sciences was not as important as science and math, and so I had been working at the last 3 years was at the juvenile hall system in Ventura County, which I really enjoyed. More so than regular high school, quite frankly.
And why is that? Why did you?
Well, it was you had more of effect. I did as much counseling as I did teaching, quite frankly, and I've run across probably a dozen kids that I bumped into over the last few years that said, "Thank you, Mr. Slay, for taking the time with me. I put my act together, and I'm doing pretty good now, and I haven't been knifed yet, so I guess I did okay, that kind of deal.
Well, I think you're downplaying yourself. You probably were a really good teacher and a nice guy, and these kids gravitated towards you and liked you, and it was...
Well, I didn't want to know what they had done. That was one of the things that was kind of a basic with me, and I just treated them all, the same as far as how the golden rule, how I'd want to be treated myself under the same situation, and it seemed to have worked in for me. We'll put it that way. But I look back on a number of teachers that I had, and they're the ones that did the extra couple of steps to help their students along, rather than just instruction, that kind of thing.
So over the years, do you have former students who still make contact with you? Yeah,
there's a couple of them that live in the general area where I live in Ventura.
I see.
That I bump into every once in a while, and they'll come up and say I'm still doing good, and all that kind of stuff. And so
and some of them probably have
it's kids. Very rewarding in that regard.
So some of them probably have kids, right?
Not yet. Well, let me put it this way: there's one that does, but for the most part, they're still have relationships, and they've shared that with me and stuff. But only one so far that has a child.
So when you were teaching high school, it was all social sciences?
I'm sorry, what?
When you were teaching in high school,
right?
You taught social sciences?
Yeah, I taught history and geography, and then taught a number of summer school sessions of geography and history also.
And do you have a particular favorite part of history that you like?
Well, my thing is ancient history, and it was totally by accident. It was when I was working on my teaching credential. I needed work to get me through it, and so I worked for the Oxnard Adult School, giving the GED tests in the county jails.
Uh-huh.
And so you sit there for 10 hours proctoring the kids taking the test.
Yeah.
And you're pretty bored. And so I went into the jail library, and me not being, believe it or not being much of a reader, I was always in the blue group instead of the red group in school, kind of thing, in grammar school.
Yeah.
But I was looking for books that are books that had lots of pictures and not a whole lot of reading. And I just happened to pick up a book on ancient Egypt, and that was 19 years ago, and that just totally enthralled me. And
so let's get into that.
Ever since then, I've been studying that and writing a book on it.
Yes. And how many years have you been working on the book so far?
Basically, since the time that I started reading this stuff, was just writing down.
19 years.
Yeah, just writing down facts for my own, benefit kind of thing, and then banging away on the typewriter, and then a couple of desktop computers, and that cut and paste feature is really great. And I've just my book takes you from the very start of ancient Egypt, what they call Dynasty Zero, about 3100 BC, right up to Cleopatra 7, and we're the last of the self-governing people were in Vietnam, in ancient Egypt.
So let me get this right. You happened to look at a book about the history of ancient Egypt, and the book had pictures.
Right.
And that's the first thing you saw, and then
that was the starting factor of it. But then I started reading on it. And I had a teacher when I was working on my credential that Jeanette. Hello, the lady really turned my life around. She brought me in a ruler, of all things, that had 30 pharaohs on the back of the ruler, and it represented 3,000 years. And so do the math, and that's 100 years apiece. And I went, wait a minute, there's got to be other people in between. So in my situation, I just started researching who's in between, and then, well, what are they all about, and what did they do, and that type of thing, and only to find out that basically they're the same people as we are. It's just the time frame and the technology is different.
Yes. So basically, you had these leaders, each one didn't last 100 years, though.
Exactly. There are, what I've researched out is that there are they have names and information about 363 various kings. The name Pharaoh did not come about until about 1000 BC, and that was because of the Greeks looking at the name Pera'a, which means the house that the king lived in. And so the Greeks kind of took that name, Pera'a, to Pharaoh. And that's where the name comes from. But prior to that period of time, roughly 900 BC, they don't really know. Well, they have the names, but I can't even pronounce them to this day, and that's been 19 years of study. But it's just really interesting that there are 363 that we know about, and there's probably another 100 or so that they only have partial names because the hieroglyphs of their cartouche, the vehicle in which their name appears within, tells you who they are. But so many of them have been scratched out and what have you, and they've gone through their periods of highs and lows in terms of droughts and what have you. They had many times in which they were in real trouble in terms of just feeding their populace, that type of thing.
So I have a couple of very basic questions here. So the work you've been doing starts around 900 BC?
No, mine goes all the way back to pre-dynasty days. So
it goes back to 3,100 years?
Yeah, even before 3,100 BC.
Okay, how far back does it go?
Actually, it can go back as far as maybe 8,000 BC, when the Sahara Desert was actually green, and the Nile River flowed across the Sahara, and basically the people came in from that area as the climate changed, kind of along the lines of what we're going through.
Yes.
And they moved into the Nile River area as far as that's where the water was, and so that's where they were able to start their agricultural situation and domestication of animals and that type of thing.
When was the wheel invented?
Well, it's funny because that would have been basically other areas, because they used a form of the wheel as far as moving stones around, but basically they were like logs. And it wasn't until probably with the Hittites, as far as actually using the wheel around about 1700 BC, 1600 BC, when they used them for chariot warfare and that type of thing, and that's also what the Egyptians did. But they borrowed it from the Hittites, which came out of Asia Minor, or what's present day Turkey.
Okay, so 8,000 years ago, or 8,000 BC, I should say.
Yeah.
Moving large objects was a big pain in the butt, right?
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
To say the least.
So how do they actually move these large stones?
That's still up to open for conjecture. As far as there's a number of people that I could name off people on both sides of the argument, going all the way back as far as how the pyramids were built and what have you, because they with all the hieroglyphics and all the pictures and what have you that the Egyptians have left behind, they really never put together a step-by-step situation of how those were built. They don't know whether they used ramps or whether they used pulley systems, et cetera, and so it's still open to debate as far as that situation goes.
So it must have taken a huge number of years to get one of those pyramids up there.
Well, when you figure that there's 2.5 million stones of anywhere from 2 to 10 tons that go into the Great Pyramid of Khufu, you got to have a lot of people and a lot of back-breaking exercise to do things like that, even if you're dealing with levers and pulleys and what have you that came about during that period of time.
I would imagine a lot of the people who were actually doing the hard labor were getting killed and maimed by these huge boulders.
Yeah, I think back to, of course, I never had a class in ancient Egypt. My background was Asian and African history when I was at UCSB, but I remember when I was a kid seeing a movie called The Egyptian, and there's a scene in it exactly what you're talking about, where somebody fell under the rollers, so to speak, and got crunched. But they found so many bodies as far as throughout the various burial sites in Egypt that show that a lot of these people had major back trouble.
Not only that, they probably got maimed, their feet crushed, bones crushed.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that a lot of people used to think that it was slave labor, and it's not. It's called corvée labor, in which the people would be working agriculture 6 months out of the year because of the flooding of the Nile and that type of thing. And for the other 6 months, they really had nothing to do. And so, as kind of paying their taxes to the king, he would conscript these people to do some work for him in lieu of paying crops and that type of thing. And it kept them out of trouble and all that kind of stuff too.
Uh-huh.
And so it was a kind of a beneficial program going in both directions. But they have proven that they had fairly decent medical care. In fact, there was one guy by the name of Imhotep that has been shown to be, not only was he the vizier or prime minister for one of the pharaohs, but he was also a medical guy, and they actually did brain surgery in which the people lived back as far as about 2600 BC. And so
wait. Some guys were doing surgery on people's brains?
Yeah, they were boring holes in people's heads, and it shows that healing took place, and so you know that the person lived after these types of things. But
that's incredible.
They had various crops and stuff that. Just as a quick aside, real fast, there's a thing that we use on a day all the time called marshmallows. Uh-huh. Well, marshmallow is actually a plant. It's called the Melicoy plant, and they used this plant back in the day for internal things as far as they called it peasant's medicinal stew, where you would drink it and it would help your insides, or you could cut it up. It's basically a tuber similar to a sweet potato, and
Uh-huh.
it was white and long, and you could put it on burns and cuts on your arm and that type of thing, and it would help in that capacity also. They also gave it to the children because it was sweet like sugar cane. So it was, this is where the concept of the marshmallow comes from, only as to the looks, because what's in it today is not. It's just a facsimile. It doesn't have the properties of what the actual root has. And I bought some seeds about 3 months ago, and they're in the ground and starting to sprout, and they're actually very pretty flower.
But they're not edible.
Yeah, no, they're edible. Yeah, they used to give it to the kids as far as because, like I say, it's sweet, similar to sugar cane.
I see. So I'm blown away by what you're telling me. So I would have made the assumption, I didn't realize I was making an assumption until we got to talking about it, that all these many thousands of years ago, people were doing brain surgery, and I would have assumed that never could have taken place. But obviously, I'm wrong.
Yeah, it surprised the heck out of me too, and I've read many accounts on. There's a number of papyri that are available that step by step on a number of different ailments that whether or not it was plant extracts that helped the situation, or setting broken bones and what have you. They've run across a number of the people that obviously long since passed away, but that they mended
Okay, we're going to take our second and last commercial break.
Sure.
And then we'll come back. This is very interesting.
Okay.
So don't go away, anybody.
Legal Shield. Total access. Everyone deserves legal protection. With Legal Shield, everyone can access it, no matter how traumatic or trivial. Check out players.buildinglastingsuccess.com and jjbrower.com. Call Jonathan at 805-535-5111.
DefeatAnxietyNow.com is geared to help people suffering with anxiety and depression. Intensive, short-term, dynamic psychotherapy helps many people get to the absolute core of their problems and resolve them. Call Dr. Jonathan Brower at 818-707-4557.
Interested in investing in real estate, leveraging other people's money? Call Jonathan Brower, and he can give you some more information. 805-535-5111. That's 805-535-5111.
SportsPsychologySociology.com can help you improve your ability to excel and enjoy your athletic endeavors. Call Dr. Jonathan Brower at 818-707-4557.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
You're listening to Human Behavior, What a Trip, with Dr. Jonathan Brower. If you have a question or comment for the show this week, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. That's toll free, 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to jbrowerphd@yahoo.com. Now, back to Human Behavior, What a Trip.
Hi, everybody. This is Jonathan Brower with my guest, Steve Slay. And we're having a lot of fun talking about different things. And we were talking about ancient Egypt. We're going to get back to that shortly. But Steve wants to talk about veterans of today and how they can still be helped, those who have post-traumatic stress disorder and other situations. So, Steve, take it away and tell us all what you have in mind.
Well, what I really wanted to promote in that regard was that Vietnam and the wars of today, in terms of the warrior themselves, is not all that different. They've had their problems. One of the things that I did with the National Alliance of Business Jobs for Veterans program was to help promote veterans to employers. That they have many qualities that employers can use as far as that goes. They do. Some of them have, some problems. But as far as there's programs like through the Vet Center today that I was somewhat instrumental in getting going with my RAP groups that I had with Vietnam veterans back in my day. That they've now become, I hate to use the word institutionalized, but they're solid programs as far as to help veterans out there to get back into the stream of things and get the job they want and move on with their life. I can't stress that enough. That if you're a veteran out there of whatever war, and you're having some difficulties, go to the VA. In our day, we didn't trust the VA, but it's proven itself that it's out there to help the veteran, whatever war that they may have been in.
And so most states have Veterans Administration.
Oh yeah. Whether in California, we have a thing called the County Veteran Service Office, in which each county, most counties, we'll put it that way, have a representative that will help you get through any of the processes that are needed to get help through the Veterans Administration, whether it be medical care, whether it be educational benefits, whether it be anything along these lines that are going to help the veteran to progress in society.
Yeah.
But as far as if you don't, you go to the VA. Just go down there and say, "Here I am. Here's my service number. Here's my what they call DD-214. That's your paperwork that as you leave the military they give you, and and in most cases, if you have either an honorable or a general discharge, they're gonna help you out.
So that's good to know.
I can't stress that enough. I mean, it's these are people today, men and women, that have given of their bodies to support our country in the time of need, and these are great people, and they deserve all the help we can get for them.
And are there enough people at these VAs to help all the guys and gals who come for help?
Well, we would hope so. The VA is now a department, just like education and the state, et cetera, defense department, et cetera, and so it has the same status, and the money has become more available than what it was back when I was just getting out of the service and what have you. But they're there to help and make them work on your behalf. We'll put it that way.
Okay, good. That's glad to know. Thank you for bringing that up. So, getting back to Egypt.
Okay.
Well, back, let's say, over 3,000 years BC.
Yeah.
How primitive were they? Did they only live till about the age of 32, or?
Yeah, it's kind of kind of paradoxical in some respects that some of them didn't make it out of into adolescence. As far as that's one of the reasons they had so many children at the time. Kind of similarity to some of the countries throughout the world today. You have more kids so that maybe a few of them will survive. You also had the various people that they proved that like, for instance, Ramses II, he died at age 92. He fathered over 200 children, 100 males and 100 females.
He's a busy guy.
You had Pepe II, who died at 86. You have just across the board, very similar to what we have today. The difference is that we have better medical care, obviously, than what they did then, but they did have some facets of what we have today to take care of the people. But you had quite a cross section as far as that goes, and a lot of it came down to where you were in the, pardon the pun, the pyramid of the social stratus,
yes,
that type of thing.
So in ancient Egypt, were people eating mostly vegetables, or were they eating animal flesh also, or what they do for food?
It was kind of a mixed bag as far as they had domesticated various livestock throughout Egypt and going into the Sahara earlier on.
Yeah.
They ate a lot of fish. Of course, you've got the Nile River right there, so that they're eating a lot of that. They had various crops as far as vegetables and what have you, and on a yearly basis, the Nile would overflow, along with the mud that was brought down from the highlands in Ethiopia to act as a natural fertilizer, which they don't have today because of the Aswan High Dam. Keeps a lot of that back. So they're starting to get into little problems in terms of alkalinity of soil and that type of thing that they didn't have back in those days. So
8,000 years BC, the rivers weren't polluted at all, most likely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was bringing down nutrients from up in the highlands in Ethiopia and what have you. But it comes down to, we have more of a variety of fruits and vegetables and what have you today. But they also had meats. But that was kind of for the upper class, so to speak. But what they really lived on, for the most part, was bread and beer.
Really?
But the beer was fermented, but it wasn't nearly as strong as some of the things that we know about today, like your malt liquors and what have you. But it was like what we used to call in the military 3-2 beer. It was low in alcohol content, but very high in nutrient value, because they didn't drink much of the water because the water wasn't polluted, but it did have many parasites and what have you in it. So and it would putrefy over a period of time.
Okay, so when they were cooking meat,
that's where the brewing came in.
They were using fire to cook the food?
Oh yeah. I mean, that goes back, probably 100,000 years.
And so they were just doing the old thing where they were using two different rocks and making a spark?
Something to that effect, or waiting on a good thunderstorm to go across.
Yeah.
But as far as they were using various means of keeping the fire going, and with the torches using butamin and asphalts and various things along these lines. One thing I wanted just to touch on real quickly is when I talk about 3000 BC, or actually 3100 BC.
Yeah.
That was the time, kind of like our Civil War, where you had two separate Egypts. You had the lower and upper. Upper meaning farther upriver. And it wasn't until about 3100 BC that they became, through wars, they united. And so it was the various groups within the stretch of the Nile that they were saying, no, we want to have our own, and forget having a king that rules over the whole shooting match. And so it was kind of an ebb and flow situation that went along with the droughts of the Nile. If we can't afford to feed our own people, why are we going to be sending food, downriver to somebody else? That kind of thing. Yeah. They had the same things going on then that we have going on today. I mean, people are people, and it doesn't matter what time period you're looking at. They're still going through the same kinds of, daily tribulations, so to speak.
And so, 3100 BC, how was their language and dialect different from how it is today?
You've got over a period of time, ancient Egyptian language, like I say, came out of the Sahara, and actually it had influences going all the way down into Nigeria and Ghana and what have you from way back. I mean, those were some of the people that were able to transfer. Over a period of time, you had much later in time, you had Semitic influences and what have you. But just like around during Tutmosis the Third with the Rosetta Stone, that those were the three main languages. You had Coptic, not Coptic, a Heretic Egyptian, which was a kind of a to put it, I guess, slang or something to that effect, everyday life stuff. Then you had the hieroglyphics, which is a higher form, and you also had Greek that was coming in at the time. And one of the things, let me throw this out real quick. I'm a real proponent of putting the names of the various places back in ancient Egyptian, rather than the Greek names that Alexander the Great brought in when he came in 323 BC.
Yeah.
Because those are the original names, and everything you see on television, like the name Thebes, for instance, that came from Greece. The actual place of Luxor and Thebes was actually known as Wasit, whereas and then Luxor is actually a breakdown of Il-Uxor, which is an Arabic word. So these are names that throughout Egypt that have changed over the period of time. And what I'd like to see on a lot of these TV programs and the writing and what have you is get back to the original stuff, so that you don't have this changing over to the Greek and what have you.
We're running out of time.
That's my soapbox.
Okay, we only have about 20 seconds left.
Okay.
When do you think you're going to have a book that people can buy about all this stuff?
Well, that's a good question. It's almost like my baby that I don't want to let go off to college. But It's pretty close to being done, and I'm hoping that eventually I'll use it as a textbook and teach on a junior college level in our county and stuff.
That'd be great.
It's set up in a scroll form, so it will be quite different than a regular book.
All right. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you as a guest on my show. And
thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, and I'll be talking with you soon.
Thanks very much, and we'll see you on the van.
Okay, thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, everybody, that's the show for today. I'll be back next week with another show. So come on by and listen to whatever we're talking about.
Thank you again for listening today. Tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time for Human Behavior, What a Trip, with Dr. Jonathan Brower on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. Have fun experiencing your human behavior.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program, brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio.